boys and girls, welcome to my channel. I'm For Classic and welcome to BenchART. So for today what I do have in it is Yakuza 5 Remastered, a game again developed by Ryo Gagazuka Studio and ported over to the PC thanks to the keylog. So Yakuza 5, despite it is using, just like Yakuza 3 and Yakuza 4, their in-house engine, it was still not the Dragon engine though. The thing is, Yakuza 5, it does use a different engine, or if it is the same, at least it is brutally improved. So visuals are very different comparing to Yakuza 3 and Yakuza 4. So when I saw this, I was expecting this game to perform much worse than Yakuza 3 or Yakuza 4. But the reality, it is, fortunately for us, not really that. So what happens really in performance in here with my GTX 1650 Super is that the performance it is just slightly inferior to Yakuza 4, but the difference in visuals, they are just absolutely insane. Alright, it's this, remember, I just want to remember that this game was initially developed in 2012, so it's a 9-year-old game. I'm not really sure what they have done with the remaster. I never saw this game originally running on the PS3, so I can't really comment. But all I can say is that the visuals, it does look pretty good. Alright, there are some moments where we can clearly notice some flaws, but overall it does look good. So for the graphical settings, I'm using exactly the same settings that I did use for Yakuza 4 and Yakuza 3. So 1440p, 60 frames per second limit, and ultra settings. So just like the predecessors, you need to select either 30 or 60 frames per second. The game doesn't support frame skipping, so if you don't hit the target, if you don't get 60 frames per second when you did select 60 frames per second, or if you don't get 30 frames per second when you did select 30 frames per second, the game will just run in slow motion, just like Yakuza 3 and Yakuza 4. So let's take a look at the results. So like I was telling you, this is just slightly more demanding than Yakuza 4, for example. So again, at 1080p, I was able to get those 60 frames per second locked, no issues whatsoever at ultra settings. 1440p, again, 60 frames per second locked, ultra settings, just like the predecessors. It is just running absolutely fine, no issues, no drops whatsoever. It was fine. So my GPU usage was pretty much between 75 to 85%, so it was very utilized, but there was still some headroom. But 4K, it starts to change. So 4K for the first time at median settings, we aren't really able to provide a stable experience at 60 frames per second at median settings, while on Yakuza 3 and 4 it was possible. So yeah, and as for the 4K high settings and 4K ultra, it just runs similarly comparing to the other titles. So my recommendations are quite simple again: 1080p and 1440p. Just go with ultra settings and use the 60 frames per second lock instead of the 30, of course. For 1440p on median, you can go with 60 frames per second, just like the other games, but you might have a drop here and there. So my recommendation is to mess around with the resolution scaling. You can use the dynamic resolution if you want to avoid those drops, or just reduce a little bit on the resolution scaling. If you are playing at 4K, you might reduce to 90% to avoid those little drops. So as for 4K high settings or 4K ultra settings, my recommendation it is to play at 30 frames per second if you want to play with those settings. I did try this new option which Yakuza 5 offers comparing to the other titles, which is the dynamic resolution. So I was expecting that, for example, at 4K high settings, there are moments where I do get like 50 frames per second or 45. I did try to enable dynamic resolution to see if it was working properly, and yes, it is working properly, but it isn't really very good, because the interval of how much the resolution can drop, it doesn't really seem to be that big. Because for example, at 4K high settings, there was a moment when I was getting like 45 to 50 frames per second. When I did enable dynamic resolution, I just started to have like 55. So I got an improvement between 5 to 10 frames per second. I'm pretty sure that it did downgrade the resolution because it was difficult to notice. I'm pretty sure that the resolution didn't drop down too much, you know, because it was hard to notice, and the performance improvement, it wasn't really big. So it's not like those games which offers a dynamic resolution option and the resolution can go as low as 50% of the original resolution. In this case, I have no idea which percentage this drops, but if I would have to guess, I would say it's something between 10% to 25%. Who knows? They don't really specify how much they do drop, but yeah, that's pretty much about that in that regard. So as you see, all the Yakuza titles, Yakuza 3, Yakuza 4 and Yakuza 5 can run absolutely fine at 60 frames per second at 1440p ultra settings or 1080p ultra settings. Despite the improvement in visuals in Yakuza 5, the game still performs more and less the same. Again, it is slightly more demanding than Yakuza 4, but the graphics are so much better. The world, it is now full of detail, the animations are just way much better. Lighting did improve brutally, so everything, it is just so much better. And one of the things that I noticed in Yakuza 5 is there are so much detail in the damn city and so much distance. I'm not talking about distance regarding visibility at great distances, I'm talking about the level of details. There are so much objects, so much fences, so much electrical cords and cables all over the place that even at 4K and using the in-house you know, anti-aliasings provided by them, which is FXA and CMAA, I still see jaggies all over the place. Even at 4K, at higher distances, if you focus at a higher distance in the fence or a cable, it is easily noticeable some jaggies going on. So it's just abused, you know, how much further they are offering the option for us to draw all these fences and cables. So it's clearly insane, but I think that this game could offer something like a TAA solution. I know that many people don't really enjoy, but possibly it was the better option for specifically this game. I didn't felt this in Yakuza 3 or 4 because it wasn't as much detailed as Yakuza 5, but Yakuza 5, there are so much stuff, so much small objects inside the game that I do think that TAA would be great for this game regarding anti-aliasing. So that's all that I want to talk about the performance. Let's talk a little bit about the game, which I know nothing about it. So what can I say? I haven't played really that much the game, so I can't really comment how better or worse it is. I just made a small search, a really small search of Yakuza 5, and they say that from this trilogy that was remastered, the Yakuza 3 and Yakuza 4, Yakuza 5, it is definitely the best. So Ryoga Gotoku really took their route for the better. So Yakuza 3, it was the worst. Yakuza 4, it did improve slightly, but the difference, it was just 1 year between each title. This one, comparing to the release date of Yakuza 4, it is nearly 3 years, because Yakuza 4, it was released in March of 2010, while this one, it was released in December 2012. What did I say? Yakuza 4, it was in 2010, March, and Yakuza 5, it was on December 2012. Alright, so that's the difference between. It sounds like it is 2 years, but it is a 3-year difference, a new engine. So yeah, many stuff did change with Yakuza 5 regarding technology, and I believe that is because of the time they did spend developing this game, comparing from Yakuza 3 and 4, which looks mostly the same. There are improvements in the combat, there are improvements in visuals, but there are small differences. While Yakuza 5, the differences are just awesomely for the best. And I'm not just talking about graphics, I'm talking about responsiveness in combat. Even the combat feels so much better. There are even missions in here where you need to drive cars, which is what I'm going to show you. it is insane. These guys just put so much stuff into this game, which I seriously, I can't take this seriously, because all these mini games are just ridiculous. But this is what Yakuza is. It is ridiculous. It is ridiculous. It is goofy, but it just addicts me for some reason. I think it is just fun. It's pure fun, and it is easy. It is very easy to lose in here a couple of hours just beating guys, or just doing this some sort of mini games, which this studio, it is very well known for knowing how to put this kind of stuff inside their games. So it's just awesome. It is the most refined Yakuza game from the trilogy, and yeah, how can I not recommend this if you did enjoy Yakuza 3 or Yakuza 4? So it's available for the PC. It does look good. It might look a little bit dated in some aspects, like facial animation, sometimes some textures, although many of the textures are very high quality. It's just some small textures here and there. But it does look really good for an old game. It is very, very revamped comparing to the predecessor titles, and for many users this is their best game. So guys, I think that's all that I want to talk about Yakuza 5. Hope you keep enjoying the rest of the video, and I do hope to see you soon. Goodbye.
着しました。はい。 はいはい。行かしてもらうぜ。何？行かしてもらうぜ。何？アクセル全開！いいレースだったぜ。何？